Okay, this should be better now. I am having a bit of a nightmare. I don't even know what day it is now. Yeah, it's Thursday. So we're going to keep going on this. Um, I have been having a bit of a problem with the way that my stream set up. I have literally spent about 45 minutes early this evening finishing off a few bits, thinking that the stream was live. It wasn't. We're here now. Um, I have a confession, and among other things, and so I have basically done the float bag. I've added a few bits of pieces onto the sponson, so the formation lights, the collision anti-collision lights, the wing and the mount, and I redid the absolute effing nightmare of the pad. And the annoying thing is, despite the fact we spent like 45 minutes fighting with it on the last one, maybe longer, I did that in about 15. I wasn't obviously thinking straight. I am kind of sleep deprived because my schedule has been all over the place at the moment. I've been working essentially 3 jobs. That must be in default, that's why that's... sorry. Yeah, so been all over the show. Not really been that focused. As you can probably tell, I'm already waffling, and it's 5 minutes in. So what I was gonna try and do tonight, or at least in this little session, is do the landing gear. So. And because Reforger seems to be a lot more capable of dealing with polys, we can afford to go a little bit higher, higher quality. So 324 mil around. Hope you've had a nice Thursday. Mine's been involved with lawyers, accountants, and trying to sort out a new contract. Right. And then on top of that, I've had to deal with all the homework and assignment crap for my masters, or one of my masters. Quite enjoying the process, but yeah, I do kind of wonder about some people that are teachers these days. I could probably have a good waffle and a good little rant and vent about that for the next couple of hours, but I won't inflict that on you. I've already been doing that to somebody else. So what I am going to have to do at the minute is work out right, scrub those. So I'm kind of working blind in the loops, in some of these loops, but I'm just going to slide them down. again, I'm just going to UV as I go. It just makes selecting stuff easier. So by process of elimination, that is the rest of the tyre there. So what I can do is once I figure out... Right. So we now know that this is the width of the tyre. Since it's nicely unwrapped, what I can do is just scale that UV. It won't be precise, it's not a proper unwrap at this stage, but it just means it's easier for me to grab. I grab individual parts out of the UV later. So, case in point, going to the UV, I can just select those two faces now. You see the selected in. So I'm going to take that out. I'm going to create a new mesh item. So I'm going to take that back one off, because from what I remember, the wheels are symmetrical, but have an adapter on one side. Oh, that's Wessex, not Westland, Seaking. I had a nice walk around somewhere. It's going to be in that Hat 6 probably, but... That'll do. So, what we're going to do is do some insets and step those back a little bit, so it centers on the wheel. And from what I remember, like I was going to say, it's kind of hard to prove, they are symmetrical. They're bolted together in the center, and there's like an adapter, like boss thing that sits on the other side. For the brake. I'm saying that now, and I'm not entirely sure whether it's the bolt to the shaft and the brake is on the shaft, or the brake to inside the wheel. I'm not sure. Okay, that's something for another. Let's focus on the bit we can see. So if I go on the right hand now, and I'm going to go polygon, insets. Let's bring my tool properties in. I'm going to go 10 mil in. I'm going to go 10 again and again. So if I grab that loop, ooh, that green's a bit vivid. So that's like the first lip step in. Yeah, I'm struggling with how bright that texture is. That's better. Right, so I don't know why I'm trying to unwrap that. So that's that first lob in. Geometry. Insert 50 mil, I'm guessing. Because it looks like it's going to a flat at the back of that. It's not 50 mil insert, but if I come to my front view, there's a couple of ways to do this with reducing polygons, but I don't know. Do we really? Yeah, I'm going to be responsible, and I'm not going to mess with the polygons. I'm not going to increase the number of polygons that we need, so I've just copied and pasted that face in. Because when that back face triangulates, which it inevitably will. So if I triangulate this now, so down here it's 22 polygons. If I was to do this and do the next step out and make this cone out with all this, there's 24 polygons. There's another 20. There's 24 polygons there. There'll be another 24 polygons on top of that. So we're probably not saving. Oh, sorry, no, hang on. There's 24. So you'll have 48 polygons in there because if there's a loop, there's 24 polygons, but when it's triangulated, there's 48. So it's going to massively increase. So by not doing that, I save some polygons. It's not a huge amount, but if you do this over the course of the model, it's potentially some savings. Likewise, I don't need the back face of that, so I just delete that back face. So if I scale this down, this is the center cone that we're looking at here. Now I could fill it all these in and whatever. There's no need in the low poly to do it. Maybe in the high poly you bake it in and you nice rounded corners and things like that. I'm not worried. I'm not so worried about that idea right now. In fact, I'm not worried about it at all. I don't want to do it. So I can go into mega detail and add all these lugs in and things. We'll deal with that a little bit later. And there are some tricks to do. You can use some nice baking to do that. Personally, don't think it's worth it, but I'm probably I don't know, I tend to err on the side when I'm designing these things in my head anyway. I tend to err on the side of caution and just go with the lowest polygon counts that I can. So I've just copied and pasted a face in. I'm not doing this in the best view, I must admit, sorry. As I said, a lot of people make high poly first and then reduce down. I get why some people do it. I prefer to go make a low poly and then go up. But again, this is just me being a little bit of a dinosaur, because you used to have a very low poly budget in like the early Arma games, OFP and Arma 1 and Arma 2. So those polygons really, making sure that you got what you wanted out of those polygons was really important. I'm not going to say it's less important, but it is, how should we put this? Yeah, it's, you don't notice it as much as you used to on slower, older machines that weren't as capable. Right, so what I want to do now is, you can see there's that log, which we'll address in a bit, and then the web that comes down, and the web is actually beveled in. So I'm going to quickly just create a new mesh object to build in as a layer. I am going to create a very thin face. A thin face, I'm going to say that looks to be about, I'm going to say 8mm at a guess. So I'm just going to nip in a wireframe. So that's the top of my boss. I'm putting it just a tiny bit below it, just to keep it cleaner. Oh, hang on. Right, so I'm confusing myself now. If I turn the tire off, there we go. So that entire center hub needs to be a little bit further back. So if I grab those edges, let's move them in a bit. Right, so what I want to do is, you can kind of see it comes out, bevels down, and then swings up. So what I'm doing is going to grab those. So let's extrude that down, and I'm going to want, yeah, I'm going to use that single one. Grab an edge. I'm going to drop that in. So I'm going to merge these polygons because I'm just going to use the fillet tool at the moment. Oh, I'm sorry, bevel tool. Just do that. Now this is the low poly, right? It is just that simple. It doesn't need to be a high poly anything. And in the grand scheme of things, that entire thing is 300 mil in diameter. Oh, it's not even 300 mil, so you're not even going to see it or notice it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to take these back edges off because again we're not going to see them. And I'm just going to grab that. There's a problem already with one of the faces, I can tell. So you can see those lines. Those are actually individual faces. So what I need to do is go in here, because I didn't join the verts when I merged them all. So you can see that face is now gone solid again. And if you come back onto the UV, you can see that. You can see those lines have disappeared. Sorry, I'm not very good at narrating at the moment. I'm just kind of curious as to why that's... Okay. Right, I'm just going to create myself a little bit of a sensor, so I'm going to go back to the wheel hub. See this face here? We're going to grab it. I'm going to bring it into this layer. I'm going to move it out and go. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to remember what the command is now. What's it? Dum. It isn't the smoothing that I wanted. I want it to subdivide. Where's my shortcut gone? Oh well. Frig it. I got told off for swearing so earlier. There's a tool that lets you make a faceted subdivide, so it's not the end of the world. Right. So I'm gonna grab those polygons. How many have we got? How many of these? So is that 1, 2? It's every 45 degrees. So that's 8, isn't it? Geometry, duplicate, radial array, pick the center. Where's my tool? There we go, right, so pick the number that we want, which is 8. The axis is going to be in the x-axis. X is going left to right. Y is up and down, and Z is backwards and forwards. It's a rather disgusting colour scheme, I do apologise, but it does stand out. Right, so if I kind of come in, so that centre boss is still a little bit high. So we are now a little bit closer. I'm not going to do things like valve stems and bolts in the back. I don't see the point. Let's see if we can find a better... Right, so this, there you go. Right, okay, so it's a braked drum. You can see the disc going in the back, so I don't mind about that. That's not so much of a problem. So I am going to grab that boss face there. Let's get rid of that so we can see. So I just copied and pasted that boss face in and go to the front view. I'm going to flip the face. So you can see a big flat disc with essentially a rebate for the things to go in. That's actually that'll be the brake disc cluster. So if you've ever seen a motorcycle clutch plate, it's kind of like that. It's a series of friction plates and fixed plates, and kind of grab plates in together. It looks like I've gone a little bit too big, because it shouldn't be much bigger than the hub. And that's the hub. So now I'm going to cheat a little here and just bring the brake plate in, because I'm just going to save polygons. There's no point doing the inside of that wheel there. It's going to save us time. So going on to the other side of this, geometry, polygon, inset. It's going by 50 mil. Let's go and extrude in. Snap is causing the problem there. Right, so you can see the plate. There's like a, yeah, it looks like a disc brake actually on that one, rather than a friction plate. Let's see if we can find something. It's one of the reasons I like the Airfix kits. Because you can look at and see what the mold's like on bits that you wouldn't normally see. Come on, I've just seen it. There we go, right. So yeah, it's a single disc, but my point stands. You can see it's butted up to the thing. We don't need it. We don't need the wheel hub. So I am purely guessing, but I'm just going to scale that a little bit down. Put the X back to 100 so I'm not distorting too much. Now you can see from that you don't really get to see much more other than the axis going across the bottom, which I'm going to do copy, paste. I'm just going to scale that face down a bit. And I am going to extrude it. And I want it to be on the same center line as the sponson, just for the moment. Oh. Because both ends were selected, it just squashed the entire cylinder down. So I'm going to remove that face. Remove that. Now I don't know. Normally I wouldn't know how far to kind of extrude any of this until I'd mirrored it or anything. So the solution to knowing how wide to do something to keep it consistently is either to mirror it off a center line, which we can do, but it adds more polys that we don't need. I'm just going to scale it 200% on the X. That way I know it's the right width now. So I'm going to grab those. Again, this is just, you can, if I show you the UV, the current UV is, that's a mess. So if I UV as I go, you can see it just makes life easier to select stuff later, and it will also mean that when you do come to do your full UV later on, you're not quite as lost or as confused. I'm going to select that. Oh, select that loop. That loop. this is going to be interesting to see whether or not it UVs properly. Oh, it did it. Okay. Normally it distorts it. Let's find the rest of that. Okay, that is just that boss in there. So you can see the UV is distorted on that. I can relax it, but we're losing some of the faces. So there's a couple of ways to do this to trick it, or not trick it, but if you don't want a distorted UV, you're better off just flattening it. So I'm just selecting the loop, unselecting a single face. And then just stitching it back together. Again, just lets me select individual faces later on. So let's go back to our side view. Right, I am going to go to. Let's grab a window in. Thank you guys for reposting. Scalemates.com. Great website. So if I go to Seaking, if I search for Seaking in here, just go into kits. If the best ones to get are the higher higher scale, so 148 or 112. Sorry, yeah, the bigger scale stuff. See, this will come in useful later as a floor plan for the model. It just shows you some really nice details of how things got together and how things, excuse me. Interior details are also very hard to find reference for elsewhere, like the sonar racks and the sonar and radar racks. Sponsons, come on. So there we go, nice bit of landing gear reference. So I can infer a lot of this already anyway. So let's go back in here. So we have a sensor already. Sorry, I was in UV mode and it's, you can't see it, but there's other stuff off screen that comes up with it, so I'm just trying to clean it up. So we're gonna go 16-sided. the dimension doesn't matter what I pick at the moment as long as it's consistent. That way I can scale it to suit my own needs. So I'm going to rotate 90 along the Z. So if I go back to this, you can see logically the pivot point for this. I'll tell you what, let's just do this a different way. So if I just grab my snip, save as. Let's call it something we remember, gear strut. I can't type, I really can't. So let's go to our front view for the moment. I'm just going to turn off my front view here for the moment. Make sure that I'm not let's move this out of the way. Make sure I'm not going to override another face. A4 RQSL, Seaking, gear strut. So if I drop this gear strut image in, from the side view, we had an idea of the size of the top of the strut without the damper moving, which is this part. So let's just change the name on here, gear strut front. 85 transparent, so that we have like a shadow in the background. Probably 2. So the nice thing about the way that Modo does background images, you can scale it relative whatever, but you can also use pixel size per millimeter. And in a number of instances, what I've done is it is got the exact dimension or scaled the drawing that I've gotten to, like, say 4096 pixels, and that way I know how many pixels. If the model is 20 meters long, I can then divide 4096 by the number of meters or whatever, or millimeters in the in the real length of the vehicle by the number of pixels. I can get an accurate scale, a nice easy scale. Yeah, blah 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 blah. Pretty sure that would have copyrighted track, but so I am going to take some liberties because I don't think I'm trying to work out where the pivot point on the side would be for the gear. So if I move this up, bloody snap. So copy and paste that, turn it 90 degrees. Fat finger moment there. I will find out what the shortcut snap key to that is at some point. So I just cut and paste the ends in. I'm going to scale those down. Shift D. Don't understand why it wouldn't do it earlier on then. Right, so that gives me a center point that I can spin all this off, is essentially what I'm after. It allowed me to also give me a reference point to do bones later on. But in the meantime, let's... gear strut front, that's what I was looking for. So I am going to scale this a little bit, because... damn it. I'm not entirely convinced this is the right proportion. At least compared to the other front view there. But again, you're relying on who made these drawings. Are they the right scale? Blah blah blah. And I'm going to argue they're not necessarily. So it's always going to come down to a budget and see what happens. So let me just... what I'm trying to find now, or I'm looking for now, is a picture with the landing gear tucked up. And it isn't something you see very often. And I never actually asked anybody why that was in particular. I must find somebody at some point and ask. HC4's got fixed gear, so I don't know why I'm looking in that. Right. I don't know what the story with that is, like creased, but I guess so we can... See, that implies the pivot is very low. So if I bring that down, it looks like it might even be lower than that image suggests. This goes back to what I said the other day. I would dearly love just to be able to engineer all the models, but I would literally spend months, well, I already do, but literally spend months getting every single tiny bit of detail right, so I don't think you'd end up thanking me for anything about releasing stuff then. This goes back to how much do we trust this scale. Right. 10 mil. Make that 600. We can, well, I'm going to trim anyway. We're going to make that 50 mil. So that looks to be about 2/3 the width of the stanchion. Sorry, I got a snotty nose again. I'm gonna do a little bit of a frig here. So I'll copy and paste that, and we're going to turn it 90 degrees. It looks to be, well, it will be perpendicular just for the stress lines. Okay, maybe it's not. Maybe it's a little bit different. I would have gone with 90 degrees, but that's going to be 87.5, so sod ya. So again, low poly versus high poly, there's a couple of things I can do here. I am going to make these webbed and whatever, so I just create a new LOD. Sorry, a new face. Blah! New mesh object. So we're going to slice up there. Blah, 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 blah. Slice there. And we'll grab that polygon. Extrude. Back when I was a younger man doing CAD and CAE, everything was parametrics. So you couldn't, it was literally, everything was drawn in almost in sequence. Everything was coordinates. So if I extrude that up, those edges. Edge remove. Easy to do if we're doing solid view. Right, so just gonna turn off that back edge. Let's just add a nice simple fillet in. Again, low poly, does not have to be smooth. Don't go mad to get smooth curves. It's not worth it. When you come to LOD later on, you will thank yourself for not going mad with polygons in areas that you will not see and you will not notice. The bigger a curve is, the more polygons you need. The smaller it is, the less you need. And in places where you are not normally looking, you will never see the curve. So don't waste your time. That was a mistake. Right, so that's our outer frame. Yeah, I'm not going to duplicate that just yet. So I'm just going to do a right view. Oh, there we go. There's an error in there at least. At some point I've dragged or scaled the faces, or it snapped backwards. So what I was actually going to do, again, very quick UV just to make life a little bit easier further down the line. So I'm just going to quickly grab those, dump that in there for the moment. Somewhere out there we go. That's just not a problem. Right. So what I'm going to do, what we're going to do is do these the web at the back. There's a couple of ways to do this, but the easiest way, honestly, there's a couple of ways, and there's people will tell you how they do it differently. I genuinely don't know whose way is better or whatever. Some people model the mesh so it just fits inside there, and they can have nice soft blends and things. I don't see the point. Again, low poly model. For me, single plane, I am just going to cut my way down and cut the excess off. So what we've got there is a nice single plane. So let's call that working or whip. I'm going to call this cut. So cut goes behind the working or the whip layer, and I am going to grab a new primitive and make it 12, because again, lower, the smaller something is, the less you're going to see it. 0.03, 0.03, 0.2. So it's a 30mm by 30mm radius, so it's 30mm radius in the X and Y axis, and it's 200mm long. So again, don't need much when you're not going to see much. So I am going to just quickly turn that on, because I don't want that clipping into there. I mean, in OFP era, back in the olden days, before probably some of you were ever in front of a computer, we used to do these, just paint them in, just to save the polygons. So if I go onto the right view now, you can see those. Let's turn that off. You can see those tubes that we've just made. So we can turn that one off. So what I need to do is make sure that these intersect the plane. Now you can use Boolean, and sometimes Boolean works great, sometimes it doesn't. So I'll try Boolean, and I'll hopefully, well, it might explain what I might show you why I'm reluctant to use Boolean all the time. So let's make that 15mm thick. Let's go into perspective view. So if I go geometry, boolean subtract, it's saying whip is not closed because of this. It's a single plane. It wasn't interacting with it, so it's not a problem. So that should be 24 faces, 24 verts, sorry. That is 24, so that's good. 24. Right, okay, in this instance it's worked fine. You'll find it if when you play with the more booleans you play with, it tends to go a little bit wonky on occasion. Right, so we don't need these external faces. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was 5 quads. So if they were to be triangulated and you brought into the game, that would be 10 more faces that you had to deal with, or the game had to render. Now, if you scale that up to the rest of the model and things like that, you can have a couple of thousand faces that you are never going to see, but the game still has to process. So why, don't add them, just cut them out. So again, I'm just going to do a quick UV and clean up. So if I bring these back in, just do a quick pack. So when we do the inevitable full-scale pack, I don't want all the faces to be split up, so it's always best to stitch as much together as you can early on. So what I want to do is I can move that cut into my cuts folder. Right, so what I can do just to save also textile space, is slice off the rest of it that I don't need. Because that will save you UV space, which means you'll get a higher resolution per pixel. You get model surface area per square pixel. That's not the best way to describe it, but it means you can fit more UV on the tile, which means the resolution of your textures doesn't have to be as high to make it look as good. Right, so looks okay. Let's go back to front view. Geometry, duplicate, mirror. Again, we can cut more off this, because again, you're not going to see it. So if I go to that, I'm going to use that edge before I commit. this in solid, it's going to be a little bit easier. So yeah, I'm cutting off that, so you're not going to see the issue, see the splits. There we go. That's a better explanation. Right, so or a better visualization rather. Again, it's faces you're never going to see. You don't need the game to render, so it makes no visual difference. So the issue that I've got now is the end here, but you see those little clips there. I'm potentially going to be a bit lazy in a second and cheat with those, because what I am going to do is hide my crime, and I am just going to scale that ever so slightly. So the crime is in these corners just here. So it's hidden. The open ends are fine, because they're going to be slap up against the inside of the inside of the sponson. Right, so I'm going to grab this bottom polygon, copy and paste, shrink it. So this is the chrome piston part that we're going to do now. So I'm going to go polygon, extrude. Because it is the stanchion that's going up inside the damper, I want to give it enough room, because when it's in flight and it's not loaded, it's obviously going to slide in and out of the landing gear strut. So we need it to move essentially up and down like that. So I want this. Now I am making this into two separate pieces, and it is going to add another 24, 48 polygons or whatever. The difference is that is going to be one material, that is going to be a different material, or rather everything that will be one material and these will all be the same material, so it won't be a problem. So looking at that, is that correct in that it's... Again, I'm looking at HC4 wheels. It's logically it's going to be similar, but the HC4 actually has fixed gear, so they could be different. But you can see the extension there. Right, just out of morbid curiosity. So that's the hydraulic stanchion. So there we go, there's tie downs. Right, so that's showing it bang on the centre of the wheel. That looks to be bang on the centre of the wheel. Yeah. So this is where we're getting into how much do we trust the drawings. Let's go back to the right side. So we don't want it to move in the X, don't want it moving the Y, just the Z. Right, so going back to this. So just above the bottom, but at the top of the brace. I do prefer to round to like reasonable numbers, so like 100 mil, 75 mil, whatever. Or if you're dealing with an imperial airframe, like Americans, they tend to do things in inches. So it's not illogical to do things in thicknesses of 25 mil or 12.75 mil, or whatever metric half inches. Right, there we go. So that's the bit that we're looking at. This is a filleted bracket. So again, a couple of ways to do this. So I need it to join onto the stanchion properly. So let's bring that back to that edge. So it is slightly tapered. Again, none of this has to be perfect, it's just, it's what it looks like. Right, surprisingly that worked well. So what I'm going to do, insert 5 mil. take the ends off those faces. Now I just grab both of those and go into UV again. So I get the end loops off quite nicely. That's the top and bottom face. And there is the edge loop off the bottom. So again, this goes back to, I don't know realistically how much detail I kind of want to put in on the low poly, because big aircraft, not a huge amount of detail. It's not hugely important, you're not going to see it. So what I will do, create Taurus. Yeah, we need to move a few bits. Cross section. Oh, lovely. It created a flat one. I obviously didn't put the depth in. That was rather dumb of me. Just skip the perspective, just make sure. There we go. So I now want to scale this so it straddles our deep bracket. So let's make that consistent. Sorry, I'm kind of drifting into my own little world. Right. So let's smack that on top of the centre. It's slightly bigger than the edge of the shackle, which is what I wanted. Again, just a very quick UV. Oh, that's what you get with fat fingers. So, I've just realised I should have created a centre for that. So I just copied and pasted a face. If we go to the front, you can see. I didn't need to create a centre because I got the point there. So I'm just going to create some nuts for the end. So I'll make them 6-sided. So 10 mil. Oh, I need that front face. Just going to grab the verts on all the corners of that. Go to the vertex mode, edge bevel, little bit bevel. Again, quick UV. Yeah. If you want to get a nice bake on some of them, you may discover that your edge is too small. The number of pixels on your edge is too small, so you end up getting distortions. You can either scale small details like this. I tend to split them out onto another texture detail sheet where everything, all the tiny little detail stuff gets rendered separately on a separate resolution. But because if you put them on with the main sheet, they just get lost. So zoom in. So there's an edge bevel on this material. So let's put a 1mm on so you can see it just sharpen. So with the right sort of settings, you can actually get some really nice effects. That's with nothing on. 0.25. Wow. 2.5mm. That's 1/4 so it just takes a nice little edge on it. Doesn't look as soft. Again, just makes it easier to actually pick stuff up later. Right, so let's grab all that, combine it on there. So what else are we looking at? We're looking at there's a big lug above the damper arm. Ah, okay. So in the model kit they've chosen to make it as a block, but in reality it is actually this, and this will be probably the actuator for the brakes. So I'm not going to say we don't need to model it, but I'm not going to bother too much at the moment. I'm more interested in the lug for this linkage arm. So again, a right view. So I am going to make another turn off the wheel hub. So 16 side, 35mm. I keep hearing this song, Lost Sky, where we started. I've been hearing this loads of times. This is supposed to be a random playlist of non-copyright songs, and that song keeps coming up all the time. Right, so copy paste. I'm going to shrink that down because we're going to use that to do the tie. So we're going to use the small one to do the boss. So I'm just going to quickly grab that again. And I'm going to get a slice. Didn't want polygon after all. Let's grab that and extend. angling this out because you will discover that there will always be bracing on lines of force. Oh sugar, that was not what I wanted. In the same way you get a buttress wall, these two are, this bottom piece and this top piece are actually going to be pushing against each other, so they're kind of braced at an angle. So let's just do a quick unwrap on this. You can just see how the UV gets very busy very quickly. So I can split these out into UDIMs as well, which I can explain when we do some proper UVing later, but essentially one of these squares, you see where it says 1002 there, 1012, 1001. One of these squares is actually your texture area. So if you want to move things out of that area, you're effectively moving into another copy of the same texture, unless you have a game engine that supports supports UDIM texturing, which honestly, just go Google it. It's, my brain is not working properly this evening, as I'm pretty sure everyone can see. So it is just going to be a case of me making a mess of trying to explain it. But it essentially allows you to paint textures in one go across multiple UDIMs, and you can then specify which texture assigns to which UDIM in the appropriate game engine. Geometry vertex merge. Okay. I thought that was joined, but okay. Fair enough. So the yellow in this case means the face is the wrong way around. It's not a problem, we can fix that later. It's like when you mirror something in the UV, it essentially turns it upside down, and it will still take a texture. It just means that if you put any writing or anything else on it, it will come out backwards. So you need to make sure that your face is actually facing up. Right, so where were we? Lugs, that was what I was actually doing, which was this. Geometry, duplicate, mirror. that in the mirror in the Y. So just realised I need to create myself a mirror point. So I've just created a line or a face there, dropped a face there. I'm just creating just pivot points that allow me to snap on the model. So I'm just going to grab the end of that. So if I just grab the outside faces, I can use locators to do this. It's a little bit less flexible from a construction when you're kind of trying to draw geometry. So let's make that orange so that we know what we're doing. Right, so what we've got now is we need to work out the transition or the merge point for this. So assuming both arms are of equal length, that is where it's going to transition. So 222 millimeters, I can live with that. So that's the radius. Mm, 720. The thing I hate about Modo is it swaps between meters and millimeters in the sizing. So if go in here, boom! That gives me a perfect point to then create a 16 side. So when that transitions down to 220 mil, it gives us a total extension of about 440, but it's not. So if that's our static height, ruler tool. So yeah, suspension max height, assuming it goes down, is about 330 mil. So 300 mil with a slight kink to allow it so it doesn't lock out is probably not unreasonable for a damper height given that. So if I bring my sponsor model up, let's get rid of the ruler tool. So where's my wheel? Tyre. So if I go in here, so this line is the back of the bay for the sponson that I've cut. So that needs to come down. Was it 330 mil, wasn't it? So 300 mil, so if I come up 0.3, so when this folds away, so it will fold away, but I need to make that sponson space. It's got a beveled interior. You swine, you! So let's do a little bit of fiddling to make this easier to pivot. So I can then grab those faces. Pivot off that edge, yeah. So that way, when it snugs in, it's not blocking through. I'm quite happy with that. That'll do. Mathematics, kids. Pays to pay attention in school, apparently. Not that I really did, but right. I don't know how long we're in here already. We're approaching 2 hours, so I'm going to take a very quick break to top up my drink, and I'm going to have a pee. So back in a minute. Right, I'm back. That was nice and easy. I'm trying to think where we were now. Right, yeah, linkage. So we need to make these. So what I want is that is on my center line. So you can copy that. Actually, no, we don't need to. I'm gonna guess at 29. That's 29.8 according to that, but you zoom in, we're not quite on the transition point. So 29.66, 29.7 is good. So let's make a little note of that. Bloody updates. So 29.7 degrees. Right, so what I want to do now is just, with that selected, I'm gonna grab, oh you shit, of course you're not flat anymore, are you? Not flat to the plane. Damn it. So, if we look at this, it splits, and these, like, it scissors, so about halfway down the length, we need to make a cut, so... So that needs to go out. Sod it. And then we'll move it back out 20 mil. Excuse me. I had some tortilla chips earlier on that I just repeated on me mercilessly. Not that you needed to know that, but you know. Geometry duplicate mirror. And we're going to go and mirror off the center of this pin if we can find it. Right. It's looking more like it. Again, don't have to be mega precise for this because you're not going to see it. At least I don't think you're going to notice it. Most people don't. It took about 2 years for somebody to notice that all the dials and mechanical parts on the Puma from years ago actually all worked. Right, so fluffy bunnies. ways of screwing up at some point and then finding out you've... Come on. Let's go in a solid view. Take that top surface. Bugger. Fucking snap again. So again, just going to do a quick UV. Because there's no way you can select anything out of that mess, so... The fact that this splits off here, there you go, there's actually another face involved in that. So it looks like there's a face there. There we go. Right, so it's an artifact of recreating the other side. Sorry, I have a different view on a different screen, and it's like a split view, so I'm manipulating the other view and it's at a different resolution. So when it magically zooms out on this one, it's because I'm looking at a different part of the model on another. Doesn't help you, but it does kind of make life a little bit easier for me. Right, those need some work. So these little tabs here are actually the ends of this, because the seam line is now going to be behind. But you're not going to see it. It's going to be between the bracket and the stanchion, so, and that'll be hidden behind the wheels. Oh. So this is going to be the inside edges. I am going to have to make the transition to Blender at some point. There's a couple of things that come up as well with something I'm doing with another project. Modo Indie's got an export limit of 100,000 polygons or faces in there we go, in FBX export, so that is a bit limiting. I do have the full version of Modo, but some of the people, or the people I'm working with, they all have plugins and stuff to do exactly what we're doing in Blender, so it doesn't make sense for me to try and stay with Modo. As reluctant as I am to leave it. Right, I'm not going to do that just yet. So if I go right, what do we say? 27.9, 29.7 degrees, wasn't it? So, snappy, snappy. So that's given us a mirror now. So if I go down here, oh crap you. Just had to split it. They just cut it and pasted it back in. The model had merged verts. So what's 29.7 times 2? So it's 0.3 or 30, so it's 60, so it's 59.4, which turns out to be exactly what I hit on there. How lucky is that? Right, so let's turn off my pivots. I'll tell you what, let's just get rid of the sponson for the moment. So, my blocks I need to move into the center. For some reason, they are off-centered, and I don't know why that was, because I thought I'd moved them. Right. Oh. Okay, less concerned about that now. Right, so how much nerd detail do we add? I'm just wondering about hydraulic lines and stuff. I mean, I can bake them in later, I guess. So let's make the bracket. I mean, I am a nerd. There is no getting away from that. You can't deny it. I am now confused. Have I made that to... Have I screwed up here? Yeah, I have. Okay, all that should be on the front, so I've got this the wrong way around. It's usually trailing, I didn't realise that. Okay. I could have mirrored that, and I probably should have, but doesn't he make a problem? Where's my pivots? Duplicate, mirror, Z. Right. We need to do a bolt through that as well. just keeping everything together. Right, so if that's the leading edge then, so that bracket is the height between the tie and the lug, which I think I've probably made my lug a little bit too big. We can fix that. So, put my pivots back on, because I can grab the center of it then. So I'll keep that at 100% width. And I am distorting this, I must admit, but it's not really a big deal, because like I say, I will come back and re-UV these, so it shouldn't be an issue. So it's given us a bit more space. See, that's... if I'm interpreting the drawing right, this is higher? What's going on there? Oh. Yeah. Me being a bit picky anyway, so... So let's grab that. Again, 5mm. Let's make that 100. That 150. That was supposed to be 5mm, but... I think it went to 5 meters. So, this is the outboard edge that we can see 20 speed on the inboard. See, this box is still open. Yes, I'm still here. So we need to just do a face patch over the top of that. Again, let's get rid of that. Put it on the done material because it just allows me to select what's already been unwrapped. So if I turn pivots off again, let's go into the right view. So I'm guessing this is some sort of... What the hell is going on there? That's better. I'm guessing this is some sort of actuator or sensor or something. Also, I'm using 16-sided cylinders. I'm going up in sort of in 8s and 4s. That way, when you can reduce it down, it goes from 16 faces to 8 faces to 4 faces to 2. Not necessarily sure about the 2, but I tend to remodel once I get to that point when I'm lodding anyway. Or at the very least retopo, but again, I normally use like a 12 or something in some of the lower poly models that we've done, unless it's a bigger curve. Something like a wheel, 24 minimum, I guess, which is what I'm using now, but some of them 36, 48. So bear in mind we're on the left gear, not the right, and this is the right hand side. See if we can get a rear view. It's a very war-y shot like that. Right. Didn't realise that was the leading edge, so... Yeah, there's some sort of driver actuator. I mean, there's a bracket protecting it, I think. Is that what that is? That'll be a loop for tie downs. So let's go back to the model kit. This is trailing edge, so I need... So I need a lug at the top and a lug set there. Or is that the wrong way around? I'm lost now. Right, so that is the back side, so it is expecting... Right, okay, I've got you now. So, what we need to do... Let's go right. Let's grab that lug. Geometry, duplicates, mirror. So that lug is now moved up. I'm going to spin it in the Z. Actually, I'm going to spin it 180, not 90, sorry. You can see that lug is the attachment point for this tie rod, which is the actuator to bring it up into the airframe. And there's another one up here, which I don't know that we need to model, to be brutally honest, because again, you're not going to see it. And unless you're a complete nerd and you go looking around in the wheel wells of 3D model aircraft, and you're going to complain about missing lugs, you can get... Because you're a bigger nerd than I am. And you definitely need to go out and touch grass and breathe in the fresh air. Which even I occasionally do. Not often, but I do it. Right. So we've got one lug in. So let's mirror that. Geometry. Show. I want to find the sensor, so I'm just merging these faces. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a line vertically down, because I know that I messed this up earlier on. And drop a line across, and that gives me the actual center point of that arc. I was a draftsman and CAD designer and CAD design engineer for a number of years, so he knows how to do this stuff. Claim to fame moment, I actually designed the floor drains for the A300B4 cargo conversion freighter. I'm pretty sure most of them are scrapped by now, because that's going to be like 25 years ago, when they were literally end-of-life airframes then, because they were ex-passenger liners, and the safety requirements for a freighter aircraft is a lot lower than a passenger aircraft. So they were approaching the end of their insurable service life as passenger carriers, and they weren't economic to operate as such because of insurance, etc. And they just converted them all to airliners, to air freighters rather. cool project. It's done at BAE Aerostructures before, at Filton, before it became Airbus. That was about 97, 96, 97-ish. My first job in aerospace. Oh, actually no, designing was the second, but the first job was working in procurement. As a production engineer. It's actually a cool time to be in Bristol because they just finished the VC-10 upgrades prior to retiring them, as the Ministry of Defence always does. And a friend of mine was an apprentice when they were doing that, and he used to have a little afternoon nap in the fuel tanks of the VC-10s. Lots of stories. I actually sat in the Queen's flight. I probably shouldn't say this. Oh, she's passed now. God bless her little socks. When they were upgrading the Queen's Flight 146s, she apparently hated the aircraft, by the way. I went and sat in her aircraft because they were doing the. I mean, it's probably an OC. I don't know. They were doing her doing the Defensive Air Suite upgrade at Filton at the time, and my mate was a shop floor supervisor. So I was working in the drawing office 7DO attached on the edge of the Brabazon hangars. And they, one lunchtime, he said, "You want to come and have a nosy?" And it was very cool. I've flown on the aircraft, on that type of aircraft, quite a few times, because they're essentially a puddle jumper. They're a regional jet. So if you've ever gone anywhere, sort of relatively short haul, like 90 minutes on a lower travelled route, the odds are you probably had one of those. They were like a city hopper. Right, so let's just go back to so that's like the folded down. Okay, so that's where the second tie is. So is that an actuator then, or? So logically that's an actuator. Right. Let's just grab that face. Again, if I do come to high poly bake this, or whether I just low poly paint it, I'll paint some bands on these. And you shouldn't really see any of it, that's the thing. So this is where we bring the sponson back in. So what I want is this bracket to touch this edge. So I need to do a little bit of sponson back on, sorry, right, so why trial and error when you can just trial 1, 1, 1, 360. So by scaling this now, I can scale it to where it touches where I want it to, which means I can move this out. So if I make that 45 degrees, because it's currently 44, that just makes life a little bit easier. So I can get rid of this now. Because calculating angles and whatever cuts, whereas 45 is just a nice easy grab. So that's that. There is a tie to here according to that. Not entirely sure how it works though. So that's tied halfway up the actuator, so as that pulls in, that's going to arc down. Is that an actuator in itself or not? It looks like it is, but I'm not gonna model it. That may be a bit sort of pedantic of me, but not being funny, you're probably not gonna see it. We can probably beef this up a little bit. Probably should. No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it for the moment. Right, so wheel hub. Let's just duplicate this. So I'm just going to create a plane for the floor. 100, 100. Front. So, if you go into here now and do a nice little render, so we've got a bit of a problem coming through the sponson. And I'm wondering if that's on all sides. You can see the back of the gear well coming in. So if I go on to my, just because I pivoted the sponson back. So it's these two edges, or these edges. Ew. Right, well, I can grab that. So let's move that 50 mil in. Let's do the same here. Because they should be mirrored, so it looks about right. Yeah. Yeah, that rod needs beefing up a little bit, but I'm not too horrified by that. So I think I'm going to knock it on the head for that one for tonight. Largely because I need to go and do a few things before it gets too late. I'm going to pick my friend up at 10. So hopefully that's helpful. It's interesting. We're about I'm going to say 2.5 in. 3 hours in. So yeah, 3 hours in is enough for one night, I think. So thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed it, or at least got something out of it. Enjoying it is probably a little bit too much to ask. Anyway, thank you for watching, and have fun. And I'll try and get back on tomorrow. I'm going to try and keep a schedule probably about 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock most days if I can. But it'll be around that sort of time. Do plan on taking Sundays off, but we'll see what happens.